welcome to another episode of the Conscious Diva podcast. I'm Tatiana, and joining me in this episode is spiritual healer Christina Prokos. Christina works as an intuitive counselor, a life coach, spiritual healer, and psychic medium with a focus on soul retrieval and inner child work. In this episode, Christina shares insights about channeling, angels, soul retrieval, spiritual bypassing, and how intuition offers insights beyond logic. We also dive into the importance of inner child work and why it's painful and how it leads us to the truth of who we are and ultimately our purpose work and self-love. Christina is also the co-host of the Soul Thrive podcast with Ivana Music. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please let me know by writing a review or leaving a comment and following me on Instagram at The Conscious Diva. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome, Christina. So great to chat to you today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Yay. So I just listened to one of your angel meditations,
Uh-huh.
Archangel Chamuel, and which I know they're a little bit older on your YouTube channel, but they're
Oh my
still
God,
really
so
relevant.
old. Yeah.
Yeah, but really beautiful and they're very short. So it's really nice. You can just kind of listen to one. And I just thought, why not? Like this is a really what we're going to talk about spirituality and how we tune into our inner child and how we heal. It comes from a place of love. So
Yeah.
I just thought, why not just tune into Archangel Chamuel and have that kind of the vibration of that come
I
and
love
set the
that.
tone.
Yeah, it's so funny. Those meditations I've done, I think it was like over 10 years now, and they're still like very popular on my YouTube channel. Like it's insane. But they work. When I invoke even like today, I was like, okay, I need to work with Archangel Michael. I really need your presence today because my energy isn't at like 100%. And so I was like, I really need support and added protection. So I was like, okay, Archangel Michael, come in, let's just do our thing and
Yeah.
work together. So it's nice.
Working with angels, is that something you have always been attuned to?
Yes. So I actually really did gravitate from the beginning of my like actual embodiment of my spirituality. I really was like, I love working with angels. Like I love this energy. And I really felt I needed it because I wasn't too sure like where I was going to figure out what my guidance was going to look like, what my path was going to kind of unfold as. And then it was kind of like calling in that added support. And I was like, this feels really attuned to also just like how I was brought up and like the belief in, God and welcoming in a higher power and like working with the angels was kind of like also very much talked a lot about in our like religion or what, however.
Mhm.
And so I felt like it was important for me to kind of like incorporate that into my spirituality. But then that helped me unlock so much more of my own abilities, which was really, really nice. Because I do feel when you work with the angels, they definitely like help lead you in a really great direction. And they help you and they teach you a lot about you, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
Beautiful. Okay, so can you expand on that? I'd love for you to just share maybe a little bit of your story when you first became aware that you could tune into angels and ask for their help, and then how that unfolded for you.
Well, I think from when I was really little, I had the ability to kind of tap into spirit no matter what. Angels didn't come into like play until I was like 12 or 13 or 14. My grandmother used to be very like she was a very religious woman. And so she would read a lot of like the Bible and verses and all that stuff in Greek. So I'd kind of like take her little pamphlet and kind of like try to read it too. And I can read Greek, but it's also very hard. But there was always mentions of, specific types of angels in there. And I was like, okay, what does this really mean if I was to kind of tap into that? And over time, I would get colors and I would get like symbols and I would get like angel numbers and so I'd start to kind of like tap in that way. And I'd be like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. I called on, Archangel Uriel and Archangel Uriel came in and now I'm seeing like 444 everywhere, and I'm like, oh, okay. I called in, Archangel Shamuel. And now I'm noticing that I'm having like a purge and I'm crying crying and I'm like allowing this energy to move through me.
Mm.
But I didn't start working specifically with the angels until my 20s. But I would call on angels. I'd be like, okay, I need added protection. My grandmother would be like, call on your angels and like have them with you, working through your day and when you go to school and your life and your experience. I was like, okay, like that's a different concept. But for me, it was more seeing like deceased loved ones and then, tapping into, people's energies and understanding like what's going on within themselves and recognizing patterns. And then, like I said, working with the angels was like the first step of me stepping into my spirituality.
Mm.
And then that helped bridge the rest of the awakening, right? So I really felt like it was a great anchor. And at the time, I really gravitated towards, I don't know if you know Doreen Virtue,
Yes.
however, she has changed.
She has. I know totally her whole
Yeah,
look,
but
everything.
to be honest, I know why. I mean, she didn't really do a lot of the shadow work aspect of things. I don't think she tapped into the subconscious parts of herself. And
Mm.
so when we're looking at like demons, the fear of demons, it's like, okay, well, you're just not willing to face, parts of yourself, right? And that's a big part of when you're working with your angels. Like they're also going to teach you about you. And
Yeah.
I think that that's important. You're going to have to like uncover parts of yourself because I think people assume that when you're working with angels or when you're working with your guides or you're activating your gifts, that it's all positive,
Yeah, it's all love and light, but
right? It's like all
but
love and
no.
light and rainbows and all this like beautiful like thing. And a lot of it, yes, is beautiful. But there is an element of you're going to hit the floor and you're going to cry and you're going to have a moment where you're going to have to like really question who you are as a person
Yeah.
and what your intentions are and how you're going to use these gifts. And when I was a kid, obviously I didn't understand that. And throughout my years, yes, it became more and more evident that you're working with the angels because you want to tune your frequency to certain aspects of yourself. And those aspects of yourself are tied to subconscious parts of yourself. So
Yes.
you have to reflect and become aware. So, yeah, working with angels became more in my 20s. When I was younger, I would see deceased loved ones all the time, which was my norm. I didn't know any different until I got a little older and realized, like, no, not everybody operates like this. And you're like, okay, this is weird now. But it is something that my grandmother had, my great grandmother had, something that was passed on. And with it, it was funny because I was having this conversation with myself today. And I thought to myself, like, I'm in a whole different perspective with my energy and my gifts as well. And I was like, you're in a new part of yourself. Remember where you were when you were a kid. Remember where you were when you were a teenager. Remember where you were in your adolescence and like where you are now as a woman. And like see the evolution in that. And what
I've
can
been
you
doing a lot of
accept
that too.
fully? Like, can you accept full? Like, I think a part of me didn't accept my gifts fully yet, because it's like with it comes so much rejection and sacrifice and so many other like aspects of yourself, right?
Oh,
And
mhm.
even though I've done so much learning and growing throughout those years, I think today was a day where I was like, I think I really need to like fully step into things and
Mhm.
fully like be okay with the fact that you not only see deceased loved ones, but you are working with like aliens too. Like
Mhm.
it's like this like weird and aliens are very much like you could say they're kind of angels, right? You could say they're kind of guides that are
Otherworldly.
coming
Yeah, other
in, right?
dimensional beings.
Yeah. So angels work in like seventh dimensional perspectives. And then, they kind of come in and they help our energy. And then I'm working with ninth dimensional perspectives now, which is really cool and interesting.
And I love that you're in the flow there. There are some other things I want to ask you about. The reoccurring theme there, which is
Mhm.
something that you do, that you teach other people, is inner child work. And so you,
Mhm.
even though you didn't actually use that phrase, which I think has become quite popular in the last, 5, 10 years,
Yes.
that's what, really, when we're tapping into these energies, it allows us to really come in. So I'd love for you to explain what, firstly, is inner child work for anybody that perhaps isn't familiar with that or has heard about it and is like, I don't know if I need to be doing that.
Yeah, our formative years in our childhood really do lay a huge foundation of how we're going to operate and how our energy and our belief systems are. And so when we have experiences that can be traumatic to a degree, we don't know how to, from our child's perspective, process that. We have no idea how to kind of integrate a lot of these experiences because we don't understand language yet. or we don't know how to communicate our full range of emotions, and we don't know how to understand trauma. And if we have adults in our life, and our guardians, I would say, in our experiences, had a huge emphasis on those fundamental years, how you're operating in your day-to-day life and your experiences is literally like a child, whether we like it or not. We have these aspects of ourselves. So within ourselves, there's like this inner child. And this inner child has the ability to really guide us into destructive behaviors or anxiety and panic and PTSD and coping mechanisms. And it also has all the wisdom and understanding as to why we're attracting those types of experiences to begin with. So I really do find inner child work is very profound, because when you sit and access those parts of yourself from your childhood, you have the ability to re-educate yourself. You have the ability to find a new point of attraction, a new energy to bring in that's really going to align you with better outcomes in your day-to-day experiences now. And that works like really close to shadow emotion within your subconscious parts, because this inner child, whether we understand it or not, whether we want to work with it or not, is leading. And I think that, we assume, even though we can be so educated in ourselves, why do we still react? Why do we still spiral? Why do we still go towards our addictions? Why do we still have these coping mechanisms? And if we can understand that it is within the inner child, and you can just reflect and tap into that, you then have the opportunity to really say, I now understand why I'm operating the way I am now as an adult. So accessing this part of yourself, and when you do this consistently, there's more and more of this integration that starts to happen, this education, this relief within yourself. And it has the opportunity to really shift everything in your life. And it really gives you the emotional intelligence, the emotional regulation that you're looking for. It gives you more context around your childhood experiences. And I've also met individuals who will say, like, oh, my childhood was really awesome. It was really great. I was really happy. Like, there was like nothing there. And I was like, we have to explore, because you're choosing something in your life right now. And that choice that you're making, good or bad, is still affecting or has affected your inner child in some way, some form. So it's a very powerful practice. It is something that I think that I would recommend many people to try to dive into. But with that too, you're going to uncover a lot of pain, right? You're going to uncover a lot of sadness. You're going to uncover a lot of anger. Learning to work with your inner child and your subconscious emotions, your shadow work, really brings in the opportunity to bridge a really big gap of awareness. And
Yeah.
the more and more you do that, the more and more aware you get.
And what's your particular technique? I work with my clients, and I think when we work in the spiritual realms,
Hmm.
manifest and present in really beautiful and unique ways for everybody,
Yes.
which is really great, which it makes this space super expansive because
Hmm.
there's someone for everybody. And so I'd love for you to share, how do you work with your clients to guide them to that space? And then I'd love for you to connect that to fragmented soul work,
Hmm.
because not everybody who's doing inner child work needs to be retrieved and brought back and pulled into wholeness in their body, but a
Hmm.
lot of people do, and they don't even realize it in that moment.
Right, right. So soul retrieval is another element that I use a lot with this like a ancient shamanic process, but it's been modernized for a lot of intuitives now that want to work with this type of modality. And so it varies. When I'm working with my client, obviously, I'm always reading their energy first, and then I have to see like where their energy is guiding me towards. So at the beginning stages, it may just be a normal conversation that we are having so that I can access as much information. Because even if you're talking to me, I'm accessing your energy.
Yeah.
So that for me is telling me a lot more than what you're saying to me.
Yeah, and
And
I'm
then
just gonna
from,
I'm just gonna interrupt for one sec. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
it's like, just to clarify for listeners, that
yes.
feels like it's very different to therapy, to like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like
Yes.
drink work, very different, because I'm sure you operate similarly to me. I'm sure that you are literally picking up, channeling the communication that's coming through, and
Yes.
so it comes through in this amazing, very supportive way that almost like taps right into their core, but
Yes.
held in the highest space.
Yeah. So there's an element of that where definitely it is you're locked in. I'm also feeling a lot of what they're feeling. So I'm locked into their own nervous system. I'm locked into their subconscious parts. So I'm actually exhibiting and mirroring back the subconscious to them. So when we're working one on one, there's a lot of that. So I'm also sometimes tapping into parts of themselves that they're unaware of that I'm bringing back into light so that they have the awareness to kind of say, like, look, this is what's showing up. And this is how angry it is, or how sad it is, or how annoyed it is, or how happy it is, whatever that may look like. So there's that element of that. There's parts work that comes in with this too. But I like to meet my client where they're at. I think when we first start off, I think there's this expectation with a lot of people that they want to integrate everything all in one session, and it doesn't really work that way, right? Like, I also have to make sure that my energy is safe enough to access your energy, because I don't want to come in and like really shock your system. And I don't want to come in if you're not fully ready to integrate that part of yourself. And sometimes people come and they don't realize what they need, and then all of a sudden we have the most amazing type of experience ever. I think people who come with a state of resistance, I tend to sit with that part of them a lot. We have to build trust before I go in, because I do work with a lot of clients who have had sexual abuse happen, or like extreme PTSD or CPTSD, anxiety disorders. Like, I have to look at where these patterns are coming from. So I see these patterns of energy within them, and I'm like working with that so that I'm not hurting them or rewounding them as well. Because I think there's that element that's very important. For me, it's like I have no problem going into the depths. I have no problem going into the shadows, especially when I'm doing soul retrieval. Like, I'm going into different realms consistently to see where you have left that fragmented part of yourself, to bring it back home. It's so hard because everyone's like, how do you work? Right. And you're like, how do I explain energy to you? It's like very hard. It's not so tangible. And I like to be mutable, and I like to have a different range.
Mhm.
It's not just one way of looking at that.
Mhm.
But I
And
try to
it's unique to
be,
that
yeah,
person too.
a
It's
hundred
totally unique to
percent.
that client.
Yeah. And so I think the education part is important. Like, I'll sit and I'll educate as far as like what the emotion is, where this emotion's coming from, so that they always have enough context.
Mm.
So then when I go in and I do the work with them, and they are doing the work, we're creating this beautiful space of energy for them so that they can feel safe enough to integrate these parts of themselves.
Mm.
But I want them to know why. I want them to understand what it's going to lead with in their life and their experience. I want them to go out after the session and embody that in their life and their day to day. It can't just be like, we're just doing this here, and then I'm going to go back to operating in a specific way. It's like, no, this needs to now be part of your life and your experience. And I think that that's where the conflict can come up sometimes, because people just want a quick fix. And
Yes.
it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It doesn't work like that.
No,
And we
no.
live in such an age where everybody wants, yeah, it
Yes.
immediately, and they're not willing to even, well, not everybody, but often there's there's no willingness to create the space for just
Yeah.
10, 20 minutes in the morning or whenever to integrate, right? To actually
Hmm.
do what, to follow up with what you have uncovered for them.
And I also feel too, like, I think people assume that the moment they start feeling better, they're like, oh, I'm good now. And it's like, no, that's when you have to
Yes.
go harder. That's why you have to go harder, because now you're feeling good. And
Yeah. And
you
that's
have to go
spiritual
harder.
bypassing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Tons of spiritual bypassing. Like, now I'm good. Everything's okay. We've done this part. I know it. Now move on. It's like, no, no. This is where you have to go even further now to see like where this is leading in your life. Because the next time you have an emotional trigger or an emotional upset, like, you need to know how to walk yourself through that and access that part of yourself. And most people like to stay, like I said, you're right, where that spiritual bypassing kicks in, where it's like, yeah, no, I learned and I'm aware, and like this is where I'm at. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, no, there's more.
I've done that. I did that like 20 years ago. I was like,
Did
yeah,
you?
I'm
How did you?
good. I don't need to. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm 50 now. So when I was,
Okay.
younger, and doing
Okay.
my spiritual work, I would reach this point, through my own practice, and it was
Right.
pulling the wool over my eyes.
Right.
I was
Right.
tricking myself into feeling great
Yes.
instead of facing my truth. And then
Yes.
things would arise. And then I started to a little bit question, okay, why is that still coming up? Why is that still coming up?
Mhm.
And then my higher self would be like, because you're not doing the work.
Mhm. So true. Well, it's true. I think that everyone can fall victim of bypassing. I
Mhm.
think that there's this element where we tell ourselves, when you're doing spirituality, it's supposed to feel good.
Yeah,
Like, you're
exactly.
supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's
Yeah.
supposed to feel real. It's supposed
Exactly.
to feel authentic. And there's a difference there. And I think,
And that can be painful.
oh my God, yeah. I mean, learning how to be your true self while you're operating with all these emotions, and then the relationships that you have in your life that are like there's conflict there all the time. Of course, you're going to have to sit with these parts of yourself, and you're going to have so much courage and bravery to face it because you're going to get rejected. People
Mhm.
are going to think poorly of you, especially if they're used to you being a people pleaser, or are you abandoning yourself, or being the light for others. And
Yeah.
if you can't give them that access, that dopamine hit, like, and if you're not operating as super positive, or even like, I think I had this conversation with a friend of mine recently. I was reflecting on my last year, and I said, this was a crap year. Like, I was like, such a crap year. But through it, I like really learned so much more about myself. And she was like, yeah, you really had it hard this year. I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't take it back at all. Like, I think that it really taught me to step in my power even more
Yeah.
and recognize, even though I thought I had these beautiful relationships in my life and beautiful people in my life, that when you're leveling up,
Mhm.
you're going to have to let go.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I actually emotionally had a similar year,
Hmm.
2024, and it was I was seeing glimpses of that even the year before. But last year, I was like, no, I have to make some significant changes in
Yes.
life. And they're sad. They're making me
Yeah.
really sad because the truth of that hurts. The truth of the conversations I need to have,
Hmm.
and the action steps and what needs to dissolve as a result of being able to level up and step into this highest version of myself. And it's often difficult to explain that to somebody who's not experiencing what you
Yeah.
are, isn't
Yeah.
sort of attuned or gets, the
Yeah.
lingo, right?
Yeah. That's, I think, very important. I like that you said too that you communicated it. I think because sometimes what happens is when we're in it, we're not communicating that we're in it. And we're not communicating to others what this change is going to look like,
Yeah.
and what you're changing as far as your boundaries are going to look like, and what you're willing to energetically put forward. Because every year that we grow, I mean, just physically, our energy, our age,
Yeah.
we don't have the capacity for certain things. We just don't energetically. And we want to learn what that looks like with our relationships, and what we can offer and what we can't offer.
Yeah.
And that's always evolving. And
Yeah.
so having conversations with people and giving them the opportunity to redefine the relationship with you, I think is so important. And if they're not willing to, then you got to let them go.
Absolutely. And that's hard for the other person because they maybe they're not open. They haven't evolved to a point where
Yes.
now you're matching, or you no longer, you've evolved, person's evolved and moved on. And that's totally fine. But
Mhm.
there's such a there's such a sadness,
Oh my God,
you
yes,
know,
the
it,
mourning period of that. Oh my goodness, the mourning. I've been mourning for, I think, a year and a half now. Just
mm,
the version I was, the how I was operating, what I had, the thoughts that I had, where I thought I was heading.
mhm.
And I really had convinced myself, like, I'm good. Like, this is good. I'm happy. And then I was like, oh no, 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 there's something wrong. And I knew it because it's like at the back of your head, you hear it, right? And I would
Mhm.
hear my guides and I would hear my angels, and I,
Exactly the same
right?
for
And
me.
you're like, no, no, I'm
Totally.
good. Everything's okay. Like, and they're
Uh-huh.
like,
You can trick yourself. You
yeah,
can I was
totally,
fooling myself
totally.
into being
Yeah,
like, yes, because I'm naturally,
yeah,
I'm innately a happy person. So
right.
I could go, okay, no, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly,
fine.
exactly.
Yeah. And
And
then
then
be like,
you
they'd go, no, no, you've got to
and they
step
get
into that.
louder and they get louder. And then
Yeah.
they're like, you said you wanted this. And in order for this is your purpose, Chris. You got to move forward in this. And I was like, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to lean into it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what the inner child work is. That's kind of what the shadow work is. It's like leaning into the discomfort
Yeah.
and being okay with the mourning of it, the loss of it, the understanding of it, the re-educating of it, and then finding a sense of empowerment in that. And in that, I was like, oh, now I know why I'm ready to, execute this. Now I know why I'm ready to do that. And even a couple of days ago, I was telling my husband, I'm like, I still don't feel accomplished. He's like, that's good. He's like, you're not supposed to. And I was like, you're right. I'm not. I'm supposed to learn more and educate myself more and figure out what that's going to feel like. And maybe it's not about accomplishment. Maybe it's just about being me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a lot because like you can get lost in that. You can get lost in like the next goal and the next goal and the next thing and the next thing. And you're like, you lose your sense of who you are in that.
Yeah, and then you lose living in the flow. You lose
Oh,
literally
totally.
being in that
Yeah.
communication with spirit. And I love that you just mentioned that you go back and do your own inner child work because we have
Yes.
to, even as people who work in this space, that's how you can step up and be the highest good for and really serve others is to
Yes.
continually inward and peel back those layers because we're carrying so much,
Hmm.
not from this life, but also
Hmm.
ancestral trauma and all
Yes.
kinds of stuff that we're
Yes.
actually doing work for our descendants, but also our ancestors.
Yes. So it's funny because I was on vacation and most people who are on vacation, they think like, I'm just going to tune out. I'm just going to check out. And I was like, no, this whole week I'm going to do soul retrieval. Like
Mm,
I'm going to spend a whole week retrieving parts of myself because now I'm hit a new layer of awareness. And then that layer of awareness, I'm now going to access. I was like, I can't believe I left that there, or I gave this part of me to this person, or, so it was like bringing these parts of myself in. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing. So I'm always doing the work. I'm always trying to like be really present with practice what I preach because I don't want it to be a deception in any which way. I don't want it to be like, oh, so positive and so happy all the time. There is a lot of positivity that comes with this, but there's also a lot of grief that comes with this too, because you're going to mourn so much. You're going to mourn like what your parents didn't give you. You're going to mourn the person that you thought you were, friendships, relationships, so much,
mhm.
but
Absolutely.
it's going to make you whole. And
Yeah.
that's what this work's all about.
100%. And then when we step back into our wholeness, then we're really truly able to serve and attract and do what we're supposed to be doing in this life, right? In this human form. So it's actually it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful work because it always comes, I always say to my clients, this work comes from the highest place. It comes
Yes.
from source. We are held in love, in loving awareness, and
Yes.
that's what this is about. It's about moving you into this space of complete wholeness so you can really show up,
Hmm.
and I think it's difficult sometimes. The phrase the truth of who you are is hard for people to even understand, to grasp that. Like
Hmm.
my husband had a really hard for years. He's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, how long have you been married to me? Like
Right.
it's only been
But
now.
don't you just love that you marry a partner who's just like, no thanks. And then you're like, okay, we've got to do the work.
Mhm.
Like, okay, you got to do some stuff.
No, it's hilarious actually.
Yeah. I love it though, because he's like, my husband is a reflection of like safety and protection and like and then I can see where my avoidance is like the mirror in like so many things and I'm like, okay, universe, thanks for bringing someone like this in my life because he's always going to kind of direct where I'm at, and I always have like an opportunity to kind of be like, okay. And then he's like, then somehow all of a sudden it's like he gets it. I'm like, okay, we're on the same page again. This is great. Now we're moving in the great momentum. Like this is a good energy. We're healing again.
Mhm.
So there's so many beautiful layers to that. But yeah, the relationships I think that we bring in our life and our experiences, I like looking at them as like our mirrors and registering, like, I'm hearing what you're saying. Okay, now I've got to become aware of this
Yeah.
and integrate that part of me.
Yeah, exactly. So expand on what it means to mirror back something, because I think that again is also a phrase that when it's explained to someone or presented,
Hmm. Hmm.
mirror, observe what's being mirrored to you, observe the kinds of behaviors, whether it's in a relationship or just in your day, and
Yeah.
you interact with a stranger in a store or whatever. Observe what's being mirrored back to you. So I'd just love you to expand on that. What is this practice? Because it's
So I'm
oh,
going to go in a range. I'm going to explain a range of something.
oh,
So third dimensional thought patterns, when you're operating in your third dimensional process, you're operating in a separation. You're operating in like you against me. And so healing is about recognizing that it's not you against me, it's you and me, right? And so when you register that there are unresolved traumas within you, and that this inner child is leading with a specific type of energy. Your subconscious is leading. These parts of you are like vibrating and pulsating with an energy. They have a momentum. That momentum is going to bring in relationships because that's the way that the universe can communicate to you. And the universe is going to then show you you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to show you parts of you, good and bad. Really, the bad just means trauma, subconscious parts of ourselves. So when a client comes to me and let's say I'm working on making them understand the mirroring process, I'm taking your third dimensional thought patterns and I'm moving you into a fourth dimensional perspective, which means we have to unravel your belief systems. You have to become aware of your limitations. You have to see your trauma. You have to see it. And the only way you're going to start to become aware of it is by registering that every interaction that you're having is a point of attraction to your trauma. And it is you, which is so difficult for a lot of people because they're like, what do you mean? Like, I totally brought in this narcissist in my life and my experience. How did this happen? And how is this me? And I'm like, look, I'm not saying you're a narcissist. It's not so black and white. I'm saying that you could have adapted behavior patterns that are similar to a narcissist to cope with certain aspects of your trauma. There could have been another aspect in your childhood where a caregiver was a narcissist, and how you develop certain coping mechanisms, codependencies in that relationship would then reflect back as to why you brought that relationship in your life to experience. And the more and more you understand that, because I think people's perception of a mirror is like, I see me, this is me, it's all parts of me. It's like, no, there's still an unraveling of understanding as to why you brought that relationship in your life and what that's teaching you about you.
That's right. And also you could just be in a store and then wherever
Yes.
you go, you're getting into an argument with somebody.
Oh my God.
Come home
Yes.
and go, wow, that person was like this and this. And it's like, actually, it's triggering something in you to mirror.
Well, it's showing you as simple as a dysregulation within you. So for you to match the frequency of an argument or to match a frequency of something so uneasy, it's like, well, that's how dysregulated you are. That's showing you that you need to come back to yourself and regulate your nervous system, right? And
Mhm.
I know this because I grew up with such a dysregulated. I grew up in an environment where there was so much reactivity with my mother, and like I learned to be reactive, and I learned to just be dysregulated. And so I couldn't understand until I sat down and realized all the anger that I was manifesting in my life, all the mirrors of these types of relationships, all these people that were causing, it's by dysregulation. I have to sit with that and I have to figure out how to regulate my nervous system. And when I started becoming aware of that, only then did that change in my reality. Because that's key. It's like that person could still be angry, but they're not angry with me anymore. And whenever I'm around them, I'm regulated and they're calm.
Mhm.
Right. So that's the shift that we're looking for. That also could mean too that that relationship dynamic or that person's out. They're no longer around us anymore because now they
Yeah,
don't serve a purpose anymore.
totally. Yeah, it's amazing how
Right.
that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
They
like
just fall
quick.
away.
Like right when you become aware of something, like I can think about last year for me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm aware that this type of behavior, I'm being gaslit right now. It's like narcissistic. I'm like, oh my God, how much did I give of my energy here? And when I said no more, I'm no longer manifesting for others and I'm going to regulate my nervous system, they were gone,
Isn't that interesting? That's
gone.
so interesting.
Cleared right out. And I was like, okay, now I have to mourn this because I thought that that was a completely different relationship dynamic. But now I'm registering, oh my God, I was so dysregulated in that. No wonder I was having physical symptoms show up. That's
Yeah.
another aspect too of mirroring, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for
When
sure.
the
My goodness.
physical body starts to show all the symptoms
Oof.
of what's
Yeah,
being mirrored emotionally.
I know. That's really, really painful.
Well,
Physically.
yeah,
My
but
God.
yeah, but also I think people don't have the awareness of understanding like when I have a physical symptom show up, it's because it's mirroring my emotional state.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
still a mirror.
Mhm.
So I still have to go into that and figure out, okay, what is being mirrored here within my physical body? And I have to become aware, like if I'm showing symptoms of panic or anxiety or dysregulation, and I'm just pushing against myself, and then I'm just numbing myself or disassociating even more. Like I'm re-wounding my inner child. I'm re-wounding my sense of who I am. And then the universe is like, okay, well, clearly you're not paying attention to the relationships around you. So now physically something's going to happen. And you're going to have to pause, stop everything that you're doing because you're so out of alignment to yourself that we're going to have to pivot here to make you aware of what you need to change. That itself is a mirror.
Thank you for so succinctly explaining all of that. That's really great. And I have had those in my life
Mhm.
where a physical manifestation presents itself in
Yes.
part of my body that it
Yes.
literally forces me to go,
Mhm.
what's happening here? What have I
Yes.
absorbed from this scenario that I'm
Yep.
not recognizing that's now causing me? And you can't explain that to another person who doesn't sort of get how energy does this to you.
Yes.
It's like you can't go to a doctor and say, my God, my leg is just, I'm in this insane pain. I can't walk, I can't move, I feel crippled. What's going on? Because they can't, they're not able to manipulate the energy to actually come in. And I use manipulate not in a negative sense, but
Yeah.
really to
Yeah.
understand what's presenting here that your body is showing, the signs, the behavior, the pattern in such a
Mhm.
way that's making you literally stop, right? And just
Yes.
assess. And it's not like it lasts for a year. It could be just a few days. It could be
Oh,
a
it could,
few
well,
weeks,
yeah. I
and it
mean,
resolves until you pay
uh,
attention.
the moment you start to become aware as to what the pattern is that you're doing and how you're operating and your thoughts that are aligned with that, it shifts instantly. Like
Hmm.
all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it now. And then
Yeah.
your body goes, okay, we can ease, we can move now, we can flow again because
It
now
thanks
you
you.
gonna change this behavior pattern. But
Wow.
most people don't operate like that, unfortunately, because they don't want to see what it is that they're creating. They
Well,
just
we're
want
also
to,
conditioned to not understand what that is.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
not raised in an environment in the, at this time of human
Oh,
evolution
yeah.
where we are, right? We're not in this space where we're educated to tune into our bodies and to feel what we're feeling the emotion. Whereas if settling in your, you've got a pain in your chest. Okay, maybe you're not actually having a heart attack. Maybe
Mhm.
there's something else, another manifestation that's showing you something, or a pain in your neck or your thighs or whatever.
Yep.
We're just not
Well, one
tuned.
of the elements of what I walk through with my clients is we sit with the discomfort as much as we can. So I'll activate that. So sometimes I'll be like, we're in a session and I'm like, okay, so talk to me about what's going on or whatever's happening. Like, everything's okay. And I'm like, I can feel the pulsation of like their stomach, or I can feel the pulsation of like something in their chest brewing. I'm like, I think we kind of just have to sit with this area of your body. And they're like, okay. So we go into it and then I lock them into it. And then they're like, oh, I didn't even realize I was carrying that. And then we go and travel towards the inner child to figure out what that is saying emotionally.
Mm.
So there is like framework for this too, which is like really great. And it really does shift a lot, which is really nice to see and witness when
Yeah.
someone gets that.
Yeah, that's super fulfilling. I love that. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. You're doing really beautiful work.
Thank
And
you.
what are the other modalities that you work in?
I am a medium as well, so I do talk to deceased loved ones. However, when I do speak to them, I like to work with deceased loved ones in a scale where we're talking about the relationship dynamic, the triggers and the trauma and the family lineage, if it's like tied to family, like if it's a friend, like what the symbolism of that friend was for that person that's crossed over. So
Mm.
when I am talking to someone who's crossed over, I'm like, if you're going to come forward, I need you to come with knowledge, and like we're here to help them process their grief, and we're here to help them understand what they need to continue working on, an extension of this process of their grief and what they need to focus on as far as healing goes. So, like, that's an aspect because at the beginning, when I first started working with my abilities, it was very basic. Like, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this because this feels uncomfortable and uneasy. And I don't know if this is what I want to do. But I was always being forced back, not forced, the force is the wrong word. I was just being
Guided,
circled back
guided
to
back.
guided back to it, right? Even
Mhm.
though I was in a state of resistance to it for a little bit.
No, I know. I've
And then, right,
experienced.
right. And then there's an evolution in that. And then as I got better at understanding emotion and understanding trauma and working with people, like it didn't feel good for me to just do a simple reading for you anymore. It didn't feel like this idea, like, what am I going to line up with? And like, tell me what the universe is like, what's the next thing? And does this relationship, like, or this person, and I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I don't want to just sit down and talk about some guy you met, no offense to that person, and like, do they like you? I want to talk about why do you feel that you need this validation from this person that you just met? Where is this trauma
Truth. It's
linked
about
to?
truth, right?
Right? Like, I don't want to give readings like that. I want to be able to give readings. And so, when I ask the universe to heighten my awareness of that and activate my full potential of my gifts, they're like, okay, you're going to go through some learning periods with this. So, there's a lot of this modality of talking to deceased loved ones, their guides, talking to ancestors, reading consciousness and energy, tapping into alien thought patterns, being
Mhm.
able to integrate soul retrieval, inner child traumas, subconscious emotions and patterns, shadow work. So like all of that is my range. I'm also open to now I'm in like a ninth dimensional perspective right now. And it's been really cool because I'm learning new things. And I don't know what that's going to look like or where that's going to land with my work right now. But all of these things kind of like lead to however that person is showing up in my space. I pull one of those that they need that they're potentially closer to vibrationally so that I have the opportunity to work with them where I'm not pulling them to a completely different vibrational stance because it's too much,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
I can come in with a lot, I have to tone it to meet them and then lift them a little bit. So you have to learn how to, and the word manipulate comes back into it, but manipulation in a very positive way where we have the opportunity for them to elevate their energy, shift their consciousness and awareness through whatever modality shows up. So those are just some fundamental ways that I work with, and those are my modalities.
You mentioned aliens before and just now,
Mhm, mhm.
and that's been a recent thing for you. What aspects of this consciousness are you working with?
So Pleiadian for sure. The Pleiades, which is very much tied to like kind of working with Christ consciousness, elevating the energy, but at the same time, really kind of helping humanity work through trauma. They're very kind and loving and just patient and understanding. It's just a really beautiful energy to work with.
Mhm.
I don't know the full range of it yet because I've just tapped into it, even though they've been telling me that I've had access to them as guides for me for many years. They're like, your awareness of it wasn't there.
I saw the whole star system when you said Pleiades.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And so I'm working with them right now, and it's been fascinating. Like it's still so much that I'm trying to understand of what they want me to do with it, but they're also right now I'm in a cocoon phase. So they've been communicating to me about your upgrading your energy, your cells, your body, like your diet, everything is changing. So you're going to be tired and I'm
Mm.
so tired right now. And they're like, and you're not going to be working at the capacity that you think that how you were operating before. You're going to be working in a completely different element. But they haven't shown me the visions of it yet fully. They've shown me glimpses, which is really cool. So it's been fun getting to learn, but I'm not fully there yet. I just know like accessing their energy, and sometimes they'll come in. And for instance, I did a live event back in October and I had like 50 people in a room. And I was like, okay, this is a lot of people for me to do energetic readings on, but we're going to do what we can. And my lady and guide came in. They're like, no, you're going to do all 50. And I was like, excuse me? And they're like, no, yeah, you're going to do all 50 and you're going to do it in 2 hours. And I was like, okay, like it's on, and it's learning to like lean into that and trusting that you have the capacity and the energy to do that. And within 2 hours, 50 people, I read them. And it was like, all right, cool. And everyone was like, this was a great experience. And I was performing readings, talking to deceased loved ones, their guides, their ancestors, and doing soul retrieval.
Wow.
So it
Wow.
was a
Did you do that as a
fusion.
group in the room or
It,
individually, every single
no,
person,
like
50 people
every
2 hours?
single person,
Wow.
every single person. And I was like,
How many
this,
minutes were you talking to each person?
it was about, I would say like 2 minutes a person.
Wow. And that much information came
Yeah,
straight to like,
straight in. Let's do this. This is what you
wow,
need to
that's
borrow. This is
amazing.
what we need to integrate.
Yeah,
And the
cool.
person would be like, and like they'd lock in, which was like crazy
Wow.
because their guides were coming in and they'd lock in and they'd be like, okay, no, yeah, that makes complete sense. You're right. I'm doing this. And I was like, okay, that we're doing
Love
this.
it.
Like,
I
this is
love
like
it.
such a beautiful fusion of energy. So I'm really excited about what that's going to look like moving forward. Like I said, like this advancement in your gifts, because I love, love, love. I think like I'm a forever student of the universe.
Mm,
And I think like for me, I love being able to be mutable and be like what works and what doesn't work and lean into that uncomfortable because I don't want to just pigeonhole me. Like I don't want to be like I'm just a medium,
yeah.
which if you are, that's amazing because you're doing such amazing work, right? But I didn't want that for me. I was like, I want the full range. Tell me what
Yeah.
this really looks like and how can I really make an impact? And they're like, in doing this, I think the most important part was like, you're going to be faced with a lot of rejection and you're going to be faced with a lot of dislike.
Mm.
And I have been. And I'm like, and they're like, so we're preparing you for this too, because there's going to be some really beautiful experience in this, and there's going to be some people that are not gonna, they're not gonna get it.
It was similar for me, and but for my messaging was you have to make there was a radical change that I had to make in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really sad. Something that I really had to contemplate for months, for ages, and then this catalytic event happened to really make me go, nope, that's it. You've been sitting along in
Yes.
your human timeline, procrastinating about the messaging. We've been telling you the action steps that you've been asking for,
Yes.
and we're bringing this thing in to go, it's time.
Yeah, well, you're needed.
It's
You're
ready.
activated. That's what it's
Yeah.
you're needed. Like I
Um,
like that's the other thing too. Like as much as we're, operating with this spiritual concept or this energy, like when you're activated, it's because your soul knows and you are needed.
100%.
And so
Yeah.
sometimes like it goes back to like let go of that idea or that concept of who you thought you were
Hmm.
because there's more to you and you're needed.
Yeah.
And you don't know where you're going to be needed. You don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know, but you got to trust and lean into it.
100%. Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
so I think that's wonderful that you went as painful as that experience was for you. And I'm sure it's still having some effects on you. Right.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's
Right.
shitty. I
But
can't
it's
say it's not
right.
a
But
comfortable experience.
no, yeah, last year. Was it last year for you? So last
Yeah.
year was a very big karmic year for a lot of
End
people.
of the year for
So
me last year.
yeah,
Like actually, and
yeah,
the build up was really the last couple of months.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
So it was very karmic. And a lot of people were experiencing ancestral stuff. And the activation, like that grief and that going through those karmic understandings, you're going to have like a huge awareness of the why in 2025, which is like what's happening now.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting what is going to manifest within this year. I'm just going to say, if anyone's listening to this and you had a year, I'm telling you, it's going to get better. There's a reason you are needed. You are being activated. So, and it's your time. It's your time because we've
Exactly.
been
Trust,
waiting.
trust. Just
We've been
really trust.
waiting.
Make the changes, trust.
We've been waiting. We've been waiting for the call, and that's what people don't understand. We've been waiting like little soldiers. We've been waiting on the lines, kind of being like, okay, when are you gonna utilize us? Like we're ready to kind of step into the game. And they're like, not yet, not yet, not yet, now, And so that's kind of where we're bridging this right now, which I think is beautiful.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's really an
Yeah.
amazing time, actually,
Yes.
to be in human form right now,
Yes.
and to activate.
Hmm.
Now, are you familiar with Diana Cooper at all, her work?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah.
A
So
little bit, not much. I don't know much, but I do. I see her TikToks. I see
uh,
like videos and stuff that people post. Yeah. She
it's
does angels, right? She works
a
with
lot
angels
of
a
angel
lot.
communication, but
Yes.
also the Pleiades.
Yes.
She's actually fully tapped into
Yes.
otherworldly consciousness,
Mhm.
which is really, we can say alien consciousness, but I like
Yes.
to refer to it as otherworldly because really, I mean, it's not of this planet, but it's
Mhm.
definitely of other planetary systems.
So a
And
lot of
stuff.
Pleiades, we have a lot of DNA. Humans are their DNA is very connected to the Pleiadians.
And so she has a lot of other stuff. But anyway, I, I listen to some of her recordings too whenever I feel like
Mhm.
I need a major up leveling or I'm about to go through an up leveling. I'll do listen to one of her. They're like hour-long YouTube recordings.
Okay. Now I'm
And
going to
they're
look into that
yeah, and
today.
she really calls like and you can go on her website and you can look up the Pleiades and listen to
Mhm.
that one and they're really amazing. I mean the
Mhm.
visual the way she guides you through it all is
Oh,
really
beautiful.
oof, you can see I'm really working right now with activating codes, like codes that are coming out of that I've
Yes.
been seeing coming out of the
Yes.
palms of my hands and all around me. And so
Mhm.
I've been asking how can I tap into this? Why has this activated now? And what am I supposed to be doing with these light codes to
Yes.
how can I integrate that into the how I work with other people and for myself? So
Yes.
listening to some of hers around the light code activations. So yeah,
That's
you might enjoy
beautiful.
some.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm going to look into that today. I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to look into that. That's beautiful. But yeah, light codes too. Yeah, activation, light codes, all of that as well. Yeah, I've been kind of tapping into that as well, which has been really cool. But also how that's kind of leaning into working with the inner child and shadow work too, which has been like I still want to stay in that frame, but in a way where it has mutability,
Mm,
right? Because I want to be able to help people access that aspect of themselves. And it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Like I'm complicated in the sense of like all the different modalities that I'm operating with. And just like yourself, you've got the complexities of all that, but you have like all these beautiful tools that you can meet someone with. And be
mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to pull this one out. I'm going to do this. And we're going to see how this works for your energy and how that's going to help you heal. I
Yeah.
think that's where that activation is coming from. I think more and more people have to become aware of the changes and the shifts that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what other offerings have you got? You've got your YouTube channel, you have a lot of things on your website, you've also got the Soul Thrive, you have your podcast.
Yeah.
Please share all the things that you have.
So I do one-on-ones. I do a lot of healing sessions. I do group events. I do like workshops and all of that as well. And then I have Soul Thrive, which is a membership platform, and I teach every Saturday in there various topics on trauma, inner child, healing, which has been really lovely because I've built a beautiful community of people. And I just launched my podcast about 6 or 7 months ago, and that's been a lot of fun and it's been like a learning curve for me too. But the fun part is connecting with new people, which has been really, really beautiful. And we talk a lot about inner child work and shadow work. Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Beautiful. And then, so what is your website?
www.christinaprokos.com.
Okay, awesome. And is there anything else you'd like to share? Any, about soul retrieval work or inner child or just, healing or finding your truth in general?
I think that I just want people to have a little curiosity, just a little curiosity right now about where you would want your life to go and what that would look like. And maybe the inner child has the opportunity to access that wisdom and that insight. So just be curious a little bit to like get to know you on a different level.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank
So,
you so much for having me on. I appreciated this conversation so
yeah,
much. It was
I loved it. What
wonderful.
a great, like,
Yeah.
awesome. We just totally flowed. It was so good.